gathered here to fill you with fear and give you a treat for your ears as we invade your mind with our scary rhymes and some tales that can be gory. As you bear witness and sit here and listen to our poetic horror stories. Hello, PHS crew, new viewers, and new subscribers. Today, we are taking a deep dive into real-life horror. We are talking about necrocapitalism. The definition of necrocapitalism, where organizational accumulation and profit are directly or indirectly dependent on death, extreme suffering, and the subjugation of life. The systemic requirement for the 1% to consume the life force of the 90% just to maintain their orbit. But before we dig into the topic at hand, please do us a favor. If you're new, can you please click subscribe? We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year 2026. It's free. It won't cost you anything. This will help our small channel grow. We would greatly appreciate it. Now, on to the video. In horror movies, you know immediately when you see a vampire. You know it's a monster. But in this real-life scenario, the monsters are the 1%. They are the vampires, the true horror. And the 90%, we are the victims, living within their blood-sucking, predatory, soul-crushing economic system. This system only works in their favor. To maintain a world where wealth is infinite for a few, it must be finite and fleeting for the rest. In horror movies, we often think of sacrifice only made to an ancient god as part of a ritual on an altar. But what about a 60-hour work week, low pay, mandatory overtime, no benefits, as you slave away in a hazardous old warehouse in poor condition? This too can be considered a ritual sacrifice. But this is ever more sadistic and twisted. We toil our lives away just to keep the 1% rich. Statistics show a direct correlation between net worth and life expectancy. In many developed nations, the wealthiest live up to 15 years longer than the poorest. Those 15 years aren't just lost. They are the byproduct of a system that prioritizes corporate margins over ergonomic safety, livable wages, and affordable health care. The elite don't just want your labor. They want us to only live and breathe for them. They prefer to work until we're exhausted, until we expire. To the 1%, this is the only reason for the poor to exist, because they don't see the 99% as human.
Hello, PHS crew. We have a question for you. Do you believe there can be an ethical billionaire? Let's start a conversation in the comments below. We are dying to know.
How does the 1% justify this? By turning people into numbers. This is what is called a horror of the spreadsheet. When a company decides to cut safety protocols to increase dividends by 2%, they aren't killing people in their minds. They are optimizing. But in reality, that 2% can become a collapsed mine, a chemical leak in a low-income neighborhood, or a truck driver falling asleep at the wheel. Our lives are the sacrifice of the cost of them doing business. We are only numbers. They let us know they aren't like us. They even make sure they are far removed from the poorest of areas. The 1% tend to live in isolated areas. They live in green zones that are physically and ecologically protected spaces, while low-income people live in pollution, stress, and violence is pushed outward into the red zones. 1% use poor people to act as a human shield against the harsh realities of nature and economic collapse. But here is where it gets truly creepy. We are seeing a shift from the 1% needing the poor for more than just wealth. We are seeing them need the poor for biological survival. The 1% are investing billions into longevity science, but these resources, the rare minerals for biohacking tech, the labor of specialized medical staff, the organs for transplants, are being harvested from a global system that keeps a surplus of poor people in a state of precariousness. In this grim equation, the life of the 1% is inversely proportional to the stability of the poor. If everyone is comfortable, no one is desperate enough to sell their plasma, to give up their DNA. That becomes statistics and data. But the scariest part is that the 1% have convinced us that this is part of natural selection. They use the language of mediocrity to mask a predatory ecosystem. They tell us that the sacrifice of the poor is a tragic necessity for progress. This is why they need us to work hard, so they can profit and fly around on their private jets all over the world, as they use the 90%'s blood, sweat, and tears as their jet fuel. But they never think once about the lost years of people who worked themselves into an early grave, so stock prices could tick upward. The 1% don't need the poor to work. They need us to be disposable, because to them, our lives have no meaning nor any value.
Eat your pizza regular, like normal people. What makes you so special? You sound entitled. I believe if you order pineapple on your pizza, you're just wicked and evil. You have to be an alien from another planet. You need to be eradicated from Earth, because you are not human.
We were told the draft was a ghost of the 1970s, a relic of a bloodier, less civilized era. But in 2026, the ghost has been given a digital heartbeat. The draft has been resurrected. It's called the NADAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. The United States decided that your life is a line of code they can execute whenever they please and silently enroll you into the military. In December 2025, while most of the country was distracted by the holidays, a law was signed that changed the nature of American citizenship forever. The government moved from voluntary registration to an automatic selective service registration. Before, you had to physically or digitally sign up. Now, the selective service system integrates with federal data sources. Within 30 days of your 18th birthday, you are in the system. You don't have a choice to serve. You are born into a debt that the 1% can collect at any moment. Your name is already on the ledger, waiting for a lottery ball to drop. They are ready to ship you out. They need boots on the ground, and lots of them. Why now? Why 2026? Because as of April 2026, the U.S. is embroiled in an ongoing conflict in Iran. While White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claims a draft is not the current plan, she also stated that President Trump is widely keeping his options on the table. That's political speak for, we have the machine ready, we just haven't flipped the switch yet. Of course the 1% will sit in reinforced bunkers in D.C. or Silicon Valley, watching from afar the war through high-definition drone feeds, while they ship out our young into a war we the people didn't ask for. But gilded titans don't care. They need bodies, thousands of them. This is where the horror becomes systematic. Why do the elites need your life, your sacrifice? Because war is the ultimate wealth transfer. Every missile fired, every tank destroyed, is a profit margin for companies owned by the 1%. By drafting the working class, the elites solve two problems. They fulfill their geopolitical ambitions, and they suppress domestic unrest by removing the most volatile demographic, young, frustrated men from the streets, and putting them into a uniform. It's misogyny. But the children of the elite will always find exemptions. Whether it's lawful non-immigrant status or specialized medical deferments, the wall between the 1% and the front line is built out of money and influence. And what if you refuse to go? Then there will be a penalty. 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. This is a nightmare for our youths. But there are things we can do. Combat strategy. 99% rise up and fight. The greatest fear of the elite isn't a riot, it's a vacancy. Their lifestyle relies on a seamless web of invisible labor. Our strategy is to exit the system. It's not just us quitting a job. It's us exiting their digital and financial ecosystems. Imagine a world where the 1% wakes up and their smart home doesn't work. The private jet has no pilot. The secure server has no admin. When you move your resources into mutual aid networks and barter systems, you stop being a data point they can harvest. You become a ghost, and you can't sacrifice a ghost. We talked about the biomargin, how they use the poor as guinea pigs for longevity in medical data. In 2026, your biological data is the new gold. In an age of mandatory health tracking and biometric surveillance, the 1% uses our collective health data to develop the immortality tech they keep for themselves. We have to stop being the control group by obscuring our biological data using encryption, opting out of wellness apps, and supporting underground community-led healthcare. We starve their R&D and its raw material. If they want to live forever, let them do it without our blueprints. The 2026 draft. With the 2026 automatic selective service in full swing, the meat grinder is hungry, but a machine is only as good as its gears. This isn't just about protests, it's about strategic friction. In the 60s, it was draft dodging. In 2026, it's digital obfuscation. Communities are forming sanctuary nodes where young people's digital footprints are scrubbed, making the automatic part of the draft a logistical nightmare, a file not found. When the 1% realizes the poor will no longer fight their resource wars, the wars become too expensive to wage. Look, the elites stay powerful because they are insulated. They never have to see the consequences of the externalities they create. In horror movies, the monster loses its power when you turn the lights on. Every monster has a weakness. To break the psychological barrier of optimization, we make it impossible for them to see us as numbers. We force them to see the 99% as human beings. The ultimate horror for the 1% is the realization that they are not the gods. They are the dependents. They need our labor to build their bunkers. They need our data to extend their lives. They need our children to guard their borders. The moment the 99% decides to stop providing the biological battery, their towers don't just stop growing, they crumble. This will conclude Gilded Titans, Why the 1% Need Your Sacrifice. We hope you enjoyed this disturbing deep dive. If you did enjoy it, then please like, share, and comment to let us know. And if you're new, please subscribe. Again, we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers this year for 2026. Become a part of the PHS crew. And since you made it this far, then why don't you click on the iCard? We have many original horror stories and deep dives you will enjoy. We appreciate and thank you all, and we will see you in our next video.